Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the January 26, 2026 meeting of Santa Ynez Solvang City Council. Duh. And we're glad you're here. Please turn off any phones or silence them, and we'll get rolling. Who would like to lead us in the pledge? Oh, yes, good point. We're starting at 6:30. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Infante.
Here.
Councilmember Claudia Arona.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Elizabeth Arona.
Here.
Mayor Brown.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Luis, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Stand. Face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, we have no proclamations this evening. We have no presentations, so we'll go directly to public comment. I don't have any slips. Is there anybody here that would like to make public comment? I don't see there any on Zoom. We're zipping through tonight's meeting pretty quick. I'm going to close it to public comment and move on to city manager's report, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Council. I have a few things to announce. One is over here on the table, we have QR codes for individuals who are looking to sign up for our newsletter, sign up for Flash Vote, or to sign up for the PBID, the Business Improvement District seminar that's going to happen, or webinar that's going to happen tomorrow afternoon. Trying to make it as easy as possible to get the maximum amount of resident participation in the various issues. So that Business Improvement District meeting will be tomorrow online at 1 p.m. Should last about an hour. Also, I have a reminder. I've mentioned this a few times, but not recently. We have our quarterly cleanup with waste management. Will happen on Saturday, February 21st, being in at 8 a.m. over here in Lot 5. That's the one adjacent here to City Hall and the fire department. We coordinated the traffic better the last time, and I did not receive a single complaint, so we're going to do it again. And it seems to be working overall better there. So again, Saturday the 21st of February at 8 a.m. to noon. And just by way of reminder for individuals, it is the third Saturday of the second month of every calendar quarter is how you can remember it. If that's not too confusing, or if it is too confusing, call me or send me an email and I'll clarify it for you. Also a reminder that the grant funding window for the city of Solvang closes on Friday at the end of the day. We've had our 2 mandatory meetings, so if you were not one of the 7 agencies represented on those 2 meetings, then you're out of luck this year. So try again next year. Also, the Aquatics Foundation is having a polar bear plunge, and I've gotten commitments from each of the council members that they're going to be there, but I don't know how many are actually going to be in the pool. But I will be jumping in at 8 a.m. 10 a.m. that morning, we all have our goal setting session, so hopefully my teeth will stop chattering by then and we can have a productive meeting. The last thing I want to do is highlight a couple of things on the upcoming agenda. So at the next meeting on the 9th of February, we will have an ordinance for vacation short-term rentals that will be on the agenda. Also, mid-year budget review. On the 23rd will be our mayor for the day, and we will also be having the presentations for the individuals who are requesting grant funding from the city. On the 9th of March, we will have a couple more ordinances. We have a few on tonight's agenda, but there'll be a few more. one of which is to change all the references to planning manager in the code to community development director. I guess the former city manager thought it was important to change them all back to planning manager when they were here, and so we're undoing that, as well as having a discussion about some of our businesses in town their patrons line up and they have a tendency to block the public right of way, and it's causing issues, and there's been a few confrontations. So amending the code to help provide some solutions to that, or at least incentives to provide solutions to that. And then on the 23rd of March, we will have a presentation by our marketing team, kind of a roll-up of 2025, and talk about Yule Fest and all the impacts it had on the community. And then lastly, on the 13th of April, we will be having the annual discussion about the Skip Mesa Landscape Lighting Maintenance District and getting that process started. So that's all I have for now.
Thank you. Any questions of city manager? Okay, thank you. We'll go on and move on to section 5. Would you read that into the record, please, Madam Clerk?
Government Code Section 53232.3D, AKA AB 1234, and Government Section 84308, AKA SB 1439, report out, ex parte communications, council comments, requests.
Thank you. Anybody want to get started? You have a new position, I understand.
I do.
Share with us.
Yeah, just as by way of ex parte, I did participate this past week in the Eastern Management Basin GSA meeting, and I was elected chair for the board. So it'll be my 4th year, I believe, representing the city of Solvang. And yeah, I did. So regular attendance. We also promoted or approved this year's schedule. So if you're interested, we're meeting officially every other month. And the CAG, the Consumer Advisory Group, is meeting also every other week at a sequential cadence. And we'll be meeting next on February 26th. I also, by way of ex parte, attended a leadership meeting, an elected official meeting by invitation to the San Ynez Aquatic Foundation, and got to meet some of the representatives for the manufacturer of the pool technology, which is quite interesting to learn. Not just that they supply all the pool facilities for most of the newer, if you will, for all of the Olympics. And they will be supplying the pools for the Olympics for the Los Angeles version in 2028. And interestingly, also what I learned is those pools, they're so high tech that they can be relocated and repurposed quite easily. So also reducing in the maintenance costs, which I know is on our agenda tonight. And then I did want to disclose that I had an impromptu meeting with the leadership of the San Ynez mission. I'll disclose my comments or what I learned later in the agenda tonight.
Very good. Thank you. Anybody else?
I will say that I also attended the GSA meeting that Councilwoman Arona is now the chairman of, as her alternate, and was there.
Good. Anything to report?
Nothing to report.
Okay, I'll share with you that from an ex parte, I was also at the aquatics meeting and learned about the pool technology and the things that are going on there, as well as we met an Olympic swimmer that was there as well, and our host and hostess were very nice and put on a nice communication opportunity for all of us. And then I had a meeting with SB County Association of Governments last week, and also with the APCD, which is the Air Pollution Control District. And I am the vice chair now for the APCD board, and that rolls into chair the following year. All things going fine. But, and then I want to thank, we had some interviews today, and I wanted to thank some folks. An interview with a German publication, and they'd arranged that. And I want to thank Tom Burkholm, Wendy, Randy, and Anna for helping with that. And I appreciate their insights and assistance. And then tomorrow, there's Dr. Heck is the president of Grandview University. There'll be a meet and greet tomorrow at Lansby for those that might be interested. But the Grandview University was basically the group that decided on Atterdag. Originally was looking at Grandview was the original university, and those folks came to Solvang to start Atterdag College. Anyway, they're going to come out and pay us a visit tomorrow. The president of the university, and if you would like to meet her and learn a little bit about Grandview University, which is in Des Moines, Iowa, which is natural. That's where all the tulips are in the in Iowa. But it should be fun, and it's open for anybody that'd like to come by and say hello. Then, we also had a one-on-one meeting with the executive director of SB SCAG, Marjorie, and we discussed basically how they might, what roles and so forth we could do, and help that they could provide with Caltrans and our transportation corridors and all other things transportation related. So that was a nice educational meeting, and it helps to have that one-on-one viewpoint and assistance. So they're a good asset and resource to us. And that concludes my item 5, ex parte disclosures. We'll move on to consent items. Would you read that into the record, please, Madam Clerk?
Consent is for routine administrative city matters and is approved with one motion. These items are discussed only on the request of council members.
Thank you. Any concerns with the agenda or the consent items?
I did want to pull one item, just to clarify, item H, 6H, just to ask a quick question of staff. And do we have a administrative change we need to make?
Yes, just to note that the resolution 261306, it should be annual investment policy, not report. The resolution says it correctly, but the agenda and the header on the staff report should say policy instead of report. And that's 6E.
That's 6E.
So if we make a motion, Chelsea, do we have to motion with that change included?
No, because the resolution is fine. So I think just wanted to note it for the record for everyone's clarification. But you're adopting the resolution, and that is correctly worded.
Okay. I'll consider any motions.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve consent items 6A through G.
Okay.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to accept items 6A through G, eliminating H for additional discussion. Roll call, please.
For clarification, initially, she stated that she wanted to pull 6G.
Sorry,
No.
I meant H.
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 Apologies.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. So, motion by Elizabeth Arona, seconded by Councilmember Infante. For the vote, Councilmember Infante,
Yes.
Councilmember Claudia Arona,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Smith, Louise Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Elizabeth Arona,
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes
Okay.
5-0.
Let's discuss item 6H.
This is the aquatics letter of intent. So I wanted to be clear, this is the intent to negotiate some of the terms, because There's some language in here that says we agree to share, and then it itemizes three things: operations, programming, and maintenance, which implies cost, which is fine, but it also goes on to say that the district is absorbing the cost or has committed to the operations, which I take to mean costs. And so I just want to be clear before we say yes to the letter of intent that it is intended for us to negotiate these things and not absorb an obligation right out of the gate before we understand what those operating costs would be.
That is certainly the intent, and Lisa Palmer from the Aquatic Foundation is here to help answer your question.
Good evening, Mayor Brown, council members. Through the chair, if I could, you're correct. The short answer is yes. So the LOI, the letter of intent, is really a good faith commitment on all parties' behalves to negotiate a formal joint use agreement. So it doesn't obligate you. It's not legally binding. It's really a good faith first step to move toward the joint use agreement, which would be binding.
I'm glad you're here. Is the district, do they have a position that binds them to the operational costs?
I can't speak for the district. I can tell you what I've been told and what I think would be part of what would be negotiated. The district's position is that they can absorb the operating costs of the complex for roughly the same amount as what they're paying now for the operations and maintenance of a 60-year-old inefficient pool.
Yeah.
So that's the working premise. So where the costs may be for the city, again, to be negotiated, it could be related to programming. It could be related to future capital improvements. Those are not to be committed in this document, but to be worked out on what that process would be in the joint use agreement itself. Is that?
Okay, that's fair. I want to make sure that all three parties are entering that with this similar understanding. Because there's one last thing that gave me pause, was it's not itemized here by a number, but there is a comment with regard to rental fees collected would offset potentially, and it says specifically, by Buellton or Solvang for the facility could be used to offset costs. So just want to be clear also that there is in the framework an expectation that we could generate revenue through the programming.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Whether it's through your own recreation programs, whether it's through facility rentals for meets, special events, that would all be negotiated as part of the joint use agreement, and there'd be a joint use committee, kind of a governing body that would oversee the use of the facility in that agreement.
Okay, I'm good.
Does that work?
Yes, thank you
Okay.
very much.
Okay, thank you. Because there was public comment, I'm going to open it up to any other public comments for this item. Seeing none, we'll close that for public comment. And if you have any other discussion?
No, I'll make a
Or
motion to
motion.
approve item 6H on consent.
I'll second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve item 6H on the consent item. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Infante.
Yes.
Councilmember Claudia Rona.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Elizabeth Arona.
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Moving on, there are no public hearings, so we'll go directly to item 8A. Would you read that into the record, please, Madam?
Land
Clerk?
use and zoning discussion for Mission Santa Ynez, TUP discussion.
And Rafael Castillo, Community Development Director, is joining us remotely. Take it away, Rafael.
Thank you. Thank you, Randy, and good evening, council members. Apologize for not being able to make it there in person this evening. So before you, we do have an item that was given by the council direction based on a public comment received on November 11th, 2025 meeting. City Council directed staff to provide a report regarding changes made to the land use and zoning for Mission San Ynez. And so the public commenter who represented the public commenter who made the comments is not a representative of neither Mission San Ynez or the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. So that being said, I have a quick presentation to provide. Give me a minute. So again, this is just reporting out basically what's going on. So again, the original, as part of the draft EIR as well, and the initial land uses, it was proposed that Mission San Ynez would have a general plan designation and open space and a zoning designation of open space and public. So you can see the majority of the property was originally intended to be open space, and a portion of the property would be zoned public. So that portion is simply just the rectory and offices. So this was historically what the zoning and general plan land use was. However, city staff did review it prior to going to public hearing and wanted to make a change to that in order to create flexibility, as well as ensure that the Mission San Ynez was a conforming use versus a non-conforming use. So open space in both the general plan and zoning designations is just that, open space, no building, no construction, et cetera. And we have both a working church and parish, as well as a state historical park. So there's a lot of things and activities going on there at the property. So ultimately, in the end, city staff reviewed sort of based on an aerial as well as input from a land use attorney from the Archdiocese of Los Angeles who owns the property, and city staff worked with the Archdiocese to go ahead and craft not only the new general plan designation and zoning, which is a expanded public institutional zone, as well as a reduction of the open space area, but also, worked very diligently with the Archdiocese to craft the allowed uses in both the public institutional zone to ensure that the church would be able to operate in the manner to which it operates today. So that means a lot of parish activities that are directly connected to the church and the mission of the functionally Catholic Church that's there on the site would continue on as an allowed use versus a non-permitted or non-conforming use. So it makes expansion and or life just a little bit easier from a land use perspective for the Mission San Ynez. So again, this was approved by the City Council in 2024, both the general plan in July and the zoning in late December. And again, fully supported by the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. So at this point in juncture, the city staff is recommending no change to any of the land uses that have been designated as a part of the general plan and the zoning ordinance. Now, one of the main concerns that really drove this item was actually the temporary use permits. So currently, the church does host events that are not church-related. A great example is the Rotary's 4th of July. Over the recent few years, there have been an artisans fair on the site. And so just to sort of give a history lesson, the city actually had what was called a special event permit section. And this has been part of the Solvang Municipal Code since incorporation. And this regulated one-time events on private property. The city in 1999 actually amended this code section and issued various amounts of special event permits throughout the city, including Mission San Ynez from about 2000 through 2017. City staff amended the special events on section, basically now sort of reflecting it, what you see in your code today, as special events on public property, and removed for just a very short time period the ability to regulate one-off events on private property. So in 2024, city staff revised the zoning ordinance to include the temporary use permit. And so what this does, it allows for a process for limited duration events such as festivals, amplified music, that what is considered accessory to a primary use. So in zoning, we're really looking at what's called the primary use. Whether if you're a restaurant, obviously your primary use is just that, you're serving food. If you're a wine tasting room, your primary is wine tasting. And then the residential zones, your primary use is residence. So again, the intention was to have sort of flexibility and issuing out these permits and sort of introducing sort of this common sense regulation, as well as bringing back the ability to regulate these one-off events on private property. So additionally, the previous code required CUPs for any form of amplified music on or within the building. And this was due to complaints from neighbors. And so that was solidified. There was actually a code amendment about this in the late aughts. So again, we had various, essentially between 2020 to 2024, various city staff, either let business owners know what was going on, that a CUP was required, and sometimes they didn't let business owners know. So we have a bit of a toss up, but now we have this TUP process in place. And again, this allows for ancillary amplified music for up to 1 year, dates specified by application. Of course, with the businesses, you have changing things and events. So city staff would be able to amend those TUPs at no charge. And our current fee is set at $200, and it takes approximately 1 to 10 days to process, just really depending on the event. If it's a one-off event like it's Artisan Fair, we then route that to our various partner agencies at both the Santa Barbara County Fire Department and the sheriff, just to let them know that there's an event going on, so that they know that if there's, just in case there's an emergency, they know there could be a significant amount of more people than what's normally on a site. Most of our businesses have fully complied, and city staff knows exactly when these events take place, and so we let code enforcement know, especially if there's loud music. We have actually had a couple complaints, and we've let our businesses know with issued TUPs, and they're very quick to ratchet it down the noise, because they understand that it is essentially a temporary use permit that's issued out, and they want to abide by the rules. And then sort of another facet to this, which isn't directly related, are business certificates. So typically as a part of the temporary use permit, we tie in sort of business certificates to ensure that those who are operating any businesses in as a part of these events, they get their proper business certificates. And so business certs cost $125 for the initial application and $65 for renewals. And these are valid from January 1st to December 31st of each year. So city staff has received complaints regarding the cost of business certificates, specifically for vendors that sell at artisan markets and other fairs for 1 or 2 offs. And so we are currently examining the cost structure of that, and then to ensure sort of fairness and accommodating the needs of the community. And we are looking at the next budget cycle to potentially adjust those. But again, community development doesn't administer this. We refer these typically out to administrative services. So couple all these things together, we feel that the TUP has been a very valuable source, and we actually are not recommending any changes to our existing TUP ordinance as well. But again, we're bringing this item back out to discussion for the council and any direction or decision. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you. Any questions? Elizabeth, you had something that we started with.
Sorry, I thought I was hearing something else.
We got some feedback. Okay.
Raphael? Is that better now? Okay, I'm going to ask him a question, though. Raphael, just a quick question. Can you just remind us, before we made these changes in 2024, the Mission property was zoned ag institutional, is that right?
Yes, that is correct. So again, the ag zone actually created a nonconformity. So many of the church functions were technically nonconforming. And so really moving forward, we didn't want a nonconforming use on the site. And so this was one of a few sites in town where went from non-conforming to conforming uses. So this is just one example of that.
Could you just explain the implication of non-conforming?
So a non-conforming use has a lot of implications. The first one being in an event of emergency, or if something, heaven forbid, were to happen to the property, such as a fire, a non-conforming use could not be rebuilt in that exact location. So there's a lot of implications to non-conforming uses. So that's actually one of the bigger ones looking forward to ensure that there was some sort of conformity moving forward, especially at the general plan and zoning level.
So I'll think of a terrible example. If an earthquake knocked down the mission, they wouldn't easily be able to rebuild without becoming earthquake code compliant.
It's not even about earthquake code compliance. It's actually whether it's an allowed use or not. So a non-conforming use means it's not even an allowed use and will likely not be able to be reconstructed. And that was under the old zoning and old land use. So under the ag zone and open space zone, under the new open space zone, really open space is meant just for that, open space with very ancillary uses. Under the new zoning ordinance and general plan as adopted, that has changed. And these are now allowed uses, they're permitted uses. So it changes the sort of arithmetic if there was a disaster to happen on these sites. So in the event of an earthquake under the existing general plan and existing land use that you have today, these structures would be able to rebuild.
Can you clarify what is considered conforming? If memory serves me right, Alisal Guest Ranch was also zoned ag, or at least partially ag, but now they're just zoned guest ranch.
Correct. So again, the Alisal Ranch went under the same issue. The Alisal Ranch, it does have a conditional use permit, so it does have a little bit more flexibility, but it was the exact sort of same scenario, that some of the items that were done in the ranch under its previous zoning and general plan land use could not be done today. That's all now been rectified and fixed.
Okay.
Raphael, can you clarify your conversation you had with the attorney for the Archdiocese late last week?
Yes, so the land use attorney, Brian Seamus from the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, contacted city staff on Friday late in the afternoon and wanted to inquire why we were going over the zoning ordinance again, and assured him that we were recommending to not change it, and they were fully supportive of no changes at this time. And again, the point of that being is both the allowed uses and the permitted uses and the zoning has been fully vetted from a land use perspective by the Archdiocese of Los Angeles.
So are you, Raphael, did we talk to any of the administrative local mission folks? Or did we just
initially,
talk to the Archdiocese who's based either in San Francisco or LA?
So initially, on the first go around during the general plan update, some of the administrators did approach city staff, and that's where the land use attorneys for the Archdiocese of Los Angeles got involved.
Okay. I'm concerned that their feedback has not been solicited or heard yet, because I did hear some major concerns when I had that impromptu meeting this past week. The concerns were, I think, something we should consider. The examples are, there's potential challenges if we decide that, or if we simply conclude that their land zone is quasi-public or public. And public implies, right, people can, and I think the church would want, open access to their facility. But they do have an open challenge with visitors to Solvang parking freely in their parking lot, and thereby denying open parking to people attending the mission or parishioners. So I think we have to be considerate that how we classify it might encourage abuse of their facilities, just because by proximity, it looks a lot like our public free parking. And they do have a mission. Their mission is to, provide access to their church. And even when they have open land, I think the open land is meant to be for meditative or spiritual use primarily. They do have, I think, a tourist angle because it's such a historic place. But I think that we might, if we heard from them, we might hear that their parishioners might be at a disadvantage or discouraged oftentimes to come visit. And I think we need to be sensitive to that. So what I was wondering is why can't we classify the mission as something singular like we did for LSL, as guest ranch, and like we did for mobile park as mobile park? It could be its
We most
own
certainly can.
designation.
We most certainly can. So I'll tackle your parking question and concern, actually. That parking is it's a private parking lot. So if the church wishes to sign it as such, and they probably already have, they most certainly have. It doesn't make it up just because it's a public institution zone doesn't necessarily mean that it's a public parking lot. A great example will be our elementary schools and some of the other uses that we have that are under that umbrella in meeting halls. Those are private parking lots, and they're not open to the public unless they're specifically allowed to, unless they want to. So that's really up to the church to make a decision. That really has no bearing on the underlying land use and zoning designation.
I think we want to be in the position to impose gating the church parking lot, or impose that they have to manage it in some way.
We're not imposing anything. That's really up to them to figure out for themselves.
I think by making it public, you're implying that it's the same as every other parking lot in Solvang.
Again, there are multiple uses on the site. It's not necessarily tied to a land use issue in terms of the pure general plan designation and zoning. Again, it's a private parking lot. If they choose to go ahead and gate it, that's up to them.
If I can help here too, the name public institution in the zoning does not translate their private property into like open to the public property. I mean, same with City Hall and all our city lots that are public institution. That zoning is separate from the decision of whether that particular piece of property is going to be open to the public generally versus just used for city purposes, or in this case for the mission and their purposes. So Raphael's trying to express that whether the parking lot is used for public parking or just for the mission parking, that is a completely separate decision that's only in the hands of the mission, and we're not dictating that by the zoning, and public institution zoning doesn't have any bearing on whether the parking lot is open to the public or not. So
I
the name
understand,
is.
But most public, they're not lawyers, and they probably don't look at our zoning, but if they associate it as public, they're more than likely to take advantage.
Let me chime in just a minute. I'll let you know, I am a parishioner at Mission San Ynez, and I have talked to the pastor about what was going on, and we seem to be in agreement with what's the no action type of procedures and moving forward. So just if I can represent or speak on their behalf, it seems like they would be fine with the what we have in front of us. That being said, though, if there's no other comments, I'm going to go public comment if anybody has anything.
Well, I just wanted to add, just to give everybody a little bit of context. My understanding is that this came from the request to discuss this came from an event organizer that is not affiliated with the Mission Santa Ynez, but uses the Santa Ynez grounds for events. And I believe she thought that the zoning designation gave the city too much oversight on events, and she felt that the changing of the zoning would ease up on the ability to make events. I don't know if it was a complaint about noise restrictions or the banners or anything that might be temporary there. So I don't think it had much to do about how the public in general uses the mission as much as how the city regulates events that happen in the Mission. So I don't know if any designation would have any changes on on how the city regulates events that happen there.
I think that the church
That-
should have more jurisdiction than the city of what happens on their land.
Well, if the church is not coming to us, I mean, this is coming from a third party that has, so I would say if it's a problem, the church would be here asking us to talk about it.
Is there any public comment, either here tonight or on Zoom? I don't have any slips. Any volunteers?
Hi, Mayor Brown, council members.
Please share your name
My
and
name
for the
is
record.
Charlene Getz. I am
Thank you.
the event promoter of the Vintage Market that holds maybe one or two events for the last 4 or 5 years at the Mission. And I have a wonderful relationship with the staff there. Eva Cazares is my go-to, and we actually did meet, impromptu meeting. We invited Elizabeth to come and listen to what concerns that the Mission has there. With regards to parking, that was a huge part, because I can tell you just in my experience with like I think I held my event during Danish Days, and we had no parking because everybody was parking there for Danish Days. So we were like in big trouble. We had nowhere to put our customers. So that was one. I know she's upset about the trolley being pushed around constantly as a tour thing, taking up parking and making it a tourist attraction. So I think to ensure the success and safety of each event I have there, I personally cover all the costs, including liability insurance, the hired security, the parking attendants, receptacle, porta potties, sinks. They don't put a burden on the city at all. I invest thousands of dollars in marketing. Yes, I have invested a lot of time, but I have a partnership with the Mission. It's privately owned. It should be treated consistently with other privately owned institutional and agricultural properties. I'd like to clarify for the record that while city staff collaborated with the Archdiocese of LA to define allowable uses for a quasi-public facility, Mission San Ynez staff were never, ever directly notified that any land use or zoning changes had been changed on their behalf. So, in notifying the Archdiocese, it's like considered sufficient, not sufficient communication. It would be similar to the city changing zoning for the privately owned Alisal Guest Ranch, like you said, Elizabeth, and notifying like Sacramento to let them know, but not informing the people who actually operate the Alisal day to day. The Mission has long served as a cornerstone for Solvang and should not be singled out for hosting a few community events like the Vintage Market or the 4th of July. And I know that I've talked about this. I'm not sure if you were there, Claudia, but the promoter of the Solvang's 4th of July celebration stated, "I'm in favor of restoring the original land use designation for Mission San Ynez so the city no longer has jurisdiction over events held on Mission property. This would make it much easier for us and for other community partners to coordinate directly with the Mission to make them successful. So I respectfully ask the council to vote in favor of restoring the original land use and zoning designation." Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone on Zoom? Okay, we'll close it to public comment and bring it back to the dais. One thing, Raphael, I understand that there's, for the temporary use permit, there was a previous permit that was required also in the other. Maybe it's just semantics. Instead of calling it a special event, it's now called a TUP for this zoning.
Yes, that is
and then-
correct. It
and
was
then also-
previously,
I'm on a
Sorry.
couple of questions lined up here, but for the
Okay.
TUP. And then also you have multiple fee schedules for not-for-profit and for-profit organizations. Explain those, please, as well as,
yes.
the previous way.
Sorry, Darren.
If I understand it, it's really semantics. There was still paperwork and applications for special events.
Yes, sorry to interrupt. Yes, previous to that, the special event permit covered one-time events on private property. And again, these were permits city staff reviewed in our Laserfish file specifically for the Mission property. There are a good about 10 one-off events ranging from 2000 to 2017. Now, after that date, there was nothing, and I can't comment on why previous city staff did not enforce their own regulations at that time. And we do have various fee structures under the temporary use permits. On the TUP, if you're a nonprofit, while we still issue out the TUP, there's no fee. And again, activities related to the church and their primary mission. As a fellow Catholic, I completely understand the parish's mission and the many, many facets of ministry of life, from Knights of Columbus to other, teen events and Bible studies. And in this church there is very functioning in terms of having different pastors coming in and out and doing training. So there's a multifaceted stuff going on at the parish, and all the events that are parish sponsored do not fall under the TUP. The existing land use and zoning that has been approved and adopted by the council gives this church the maximum flexibility to operate as they see fit based on what's existing today.
They give them flexibility, Raphael. My goal is to give them maximum governance. How much do they have to rely on or work within the city's boundaries to determine what happens on their property?
So this is a quintessential zoning question. I mean, the church is like every single property owner, whether it's a church or a residence. There's underlying zoning regulations, whether it's setbacks, heights, etc. So if the church were to, and they've gone through various entitlements. The last entitlement that the church completed was in 1989 for the parish hall, and that was a multi-year experience with the city, and eventually got approved and constructed. So there are some levels of entitlement that the parish would have to do very similar to other property owners. Zoning doesn't treat any differently a church than it does a private property owner. But again, based on the current uses as designed, there is as minimal of an entitlement process as possible. So case in point, if the church wanted to build a new guest lodging facility for their incoming pastors and preachers that they train, based on the existing uses today on the definitions, they most certainly can do that, running through just the simplified development permit process because it's an allowed use. Conversely, under the old zoning, it may not have been possible under the ag zone, nor if it would remained open space. That's the big fundamental difference between the two.
And if they wanted to build or expand their parking lot?
Same thing. It's a parking lot. It's ancillary. It's an allowed use. If they want to expand it, it's just a straight building permit. There's no entitlement process whatsoever. Under the old code, that was a fundamental question of.
I'm not suggesting we go back to the old
allowed?
code. I'm suggesting we create a new zone just for them, just like we did for Mobile Park
And again,
for
City staff is
guest ranch.
disagreeing with that.
Yeah, I mean,
Because at
I
this-
think what would be the downside if we did that, just to designate, with parity of respect, that they're their own entity, that we did a zone, just a mission zone.
So it's a general plan amendment plus a zone change. So that's a significant amount of staff time to create a new zone, to environmentally analyze the zone, and then go through the processes of amending our general plan and zoning ordinance.
I think it would be useful to know exactly what problem we are trying to solve because, yes, we can designate the mission as private property, and there are several designations that could fall under private property. But if what is it that they would like to do that they cannot do under the current designation? I think that's what we're trying to solve.
I think that even, Claudia, we need to be careful because even as public, and maybe this is a deeper dive, but as a public zone, they are, that opens them to different sign ordinance obligations, for example. So it
But,
becomes a multidimensional
Okay, but I thought
implication.
Well, okay, again, if it's a signage thing, then I would
just-
like to hear we want to change it because then we would be allowed these kind of signage. Right.
I just wonder if they understand all the implications of becoming public classification.
So again, they already are public and institutional. My suggestion would be that you direct city staff to meet with the administration and go over what they can and can't do and give a clear zoning and general plan land use sort of mini class and have these questions asked. Because again, this has been vetted by the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, and granted, they're not the on-site administrators. but
Honestly,
these
I
are
would feel
folks who
better if that were the
administer-
case and we check that box because it sounds like we haven't.
Right.
I mean, it sounds, I don't want to discount the conversation you had, Dave, but I would like to formalize it.
I think probably if we need more information, let's table this for a future meeting and move on.
Fair enough.
And get that information that you need and bring it back at another time. Any thoughts on that?
I'd be happy to support anything they need. Happy to help with that.
Yeah, we want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
Right.
So if that be the case, I'd entertain a motion to table it for a future meeting with the idea that there'll be some additional information gathering.
If I may, Mayor, this item was for information only, so you could just give direction to staff to reach out to the local parish and discuss with them and bring it back. There's no motion needed to table the item.
Okay. Do we have staff that can do that? Does that be under your department?
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. City Manager, Mr. Murphy?
Yeah, we can. We'll
you-
coordinate and have that discussion. It may be simple misunderstanding. Like you said, the communication apparently hasn't been the best with the local parish. I would think if the land use attorney with the Archdiocese didn't have concerns, probably not, but it's still a good opportunity for us to coordinate with them and make sure and alleviate any of those concerns.
That sounds
And
great.
if you need their contact information for either the pastor or the executive director there, I'm happy to share that with you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we will.
Thanks, Raphael.
Thank you. We will table this for a different meeting. Okay, let's go to item 8B. Would you read that into the record, please?
Introduction of ordinance amending, updating the list of designated filers under the city's conflict of interest code.
Thank you. Staff report, please.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Thank you. Chelsea O'Sullivan, City Attorney. This item is coming forward because on even years, the City Council is to review the Conflict of Interest Code and determine if there are any new positions to be added to designated filers and make any other changes. Staff identified 3 changes for this round of review of the Conflict of Interest Code, including adding 2 new positions to the list of designated filers. That's the assistant to the city manager and the administrative services manager positions. And then also consistent with other updates that you'll see in the near future, retitling the designated filer planning / community development director to just be community development director. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I had a question. With the planning director change to community, what's our new title?
Community development director.
What if scenarios here? If that position didn't exist or we wanted to do a contract, because we used to contract this department out, if you will, would we be changing the titles and the information again at that point in time for a vendor?
No, no. And this is sort of previewing the ordinance to come, but the definition, we're also adjusting the definition. So it's community development director and designee, or if there is no director appointed, the city manager or designee, so that it'll be defined such that there's enough flexibility to accommodate that type of situation, but have the code just be community development director. And so since we were already making, in this chapter making changes, we swept up that community development director change in this ordinance as well.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy?
I was going to point out, we're trying to do that as we do these code updates. And you'll recall, we've had a few discussions about a specific fee amount was in the code. And we've been changing, and we have changed all of those to say a fee as designated in the fee schedule adopted by the council. So we're doing these kinds of things as we clean up the various code sections.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, I'll open it to public comment, if there is any. Anybody on Zoom? Very good. I will now close public comment and bring it back for a discussion or motion. Any feedback, concerns?
Well, this is just to introduce the first reading. So I don't think there is a motion required, is there?
Yes, there is a motion you have to make a motion to introduce the ordinance.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we introduce the ordinance.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded for item 8B. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Infante,
Yes?
Councilmember Claudia Rona,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Elizabeth Arona,
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes,
Motion passes 5-0.
thank you. If you would read item 8C into the record, please.
Introduced for first reading ordinance number 260387, adjusting prevailing wage requirements.
Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. This is another cleanup item to make things a little bit more administratively easy for staff. Under the labor code, it generally, for general law cities, all public works projects that are $1,000 or more have to be covered by prevailing wages. And Solvang, as a charter city, technically has more flexibility to not require prevailing wages for its projects. However, the state legislature kind of got wise to that, and this happened a while ago, but adopted another code section, Labor Code Section 1782, which basically says if a charter city doesn't comport with the labor code requirements for prevailing wages for certain projects, that then all the charter cities projects are not eligible for state funding. And I will say the section is very awkwardly worded, but we were pretty much compliant with that with what we had, but what it created was for local projects, we had a different prevailing wage number than we had for state funded projects. And so this change is just to drop everything down to the $1,000 level so that staff can just know, like, there's no different rules depending on where the funding's coming from for projects. And prevailing wages will apply at the $1,000 level regardless. So that's in an effort to be more administratively less burdensome for staff. And the reality is that this is kind of just a cleanup because I think most contracts are going to be over the $25,000 mark for construction projects and over the $15,000 mark for maintenance projects, which, at that point, we have to allow prevailing wages no matter what by state law. So another cleanup ordinance. Happy to answer questions.
My question is, who's the burden on? Is it on their vendor as to their wages that they pay their employees, or is it on us to oversee that?
Well, we would have it in the contract, like as part of a public works bid package. It's going to have provisions in there that require compliance with labor code provisions and prevailing wages. So both, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Chelsea, I had a question, because when I read this at first, I didn't realize, till I asked a couple questions of staff, that this was only applicable to public works projects. What about the labor code makes it specific to that construction type work?
So it's just the Labor Code Section 1771 says that for public works projects, you have to pay prevailing wages for contracts, public works contracts specifically over $1,000. And then this Labor Code Section 1782, which creates the incentive mechanism to get charter cities to pay prevailing wages when they wouldn't otherwise have to under the Constitution, that is more specific for construction projects and maintenance projects, but it ties in the prevailing wages requirement for all public works projects. So it's not going to, deal with our IT vendor contract or something like that. We're talking like street repair.
Yeah. I asked a bunch of questions about, well, how exposed does this make us? And then it was clarified for me, it's only public works. And because if we went to prevailing wage, it could be up to 30% increase, but it's a really minimum exposure for us to do this. At least that was my
And
takeaway.
it's only for public work, so
Right.
Parks and Rec or special events.
Utility stuff.
At the park, we're putting in amplifiers and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Those contracts can be upwards of $50,000.
Yeah, and I don't, that's not going to be
That's not
public
public
works. I
works.
don't think that's going to be.
Department of Industrial Relations has several jobs, essentially, descriptions, et cetera, that it would be applicable to. I don't believe those are included.
Those examples.
But if we're talking $25,000 and over, that's already, if it's a public works project, that would already, under our code now, be prevailing wages. So there's really just this little sliver that we're talking about
Okay.
between $1,000 and $25,000. And at this point, I don't think there's that many contracts that fit within that. And so having staff remember that and keep track of when that one of those smaller contracts comes around, we thought just easier to.
Agreed.
So
have to
Chelsea,
worry
what
about
you're
it.
saying is the fiscal impact is minimum for us.
Yes.
Any other questions? If not, I'll go to public comment and open it up for public comment. If there's anybody that wishes to discuss this item or share an opinion. Nobody on Zoom, nobody local. Then I will close it to public comment and bring it back to the council for either additional questions, discussion, or a motion.
I'll make a motion to introduce the first reading ordinance number 26-0387, adjusting prevailing wage requirements.
Go ahead.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve for first reading, item 8C. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Infante,
Yes.
Councilmember Claudia Arona,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Elizabeth Arona.
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes,
Motion passes 5-0.
thank you. We're going to move on to 8D, Delta. Would you read that into the record for us, please, Madam Clerk?
Introduced for first reading ordinance number 260388, amending certain sections of Title I, Administration, Chapter 3, General Penalties, and Title 4, Business Regulations, Chapter 9, Business Certificates of the Solvang Municipal Code to strengthen enforcement tools.
Thank you. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. This is one of the more recent efforts in the city's general effort to increase our enforcement tools and make the code less of a paper tiger, as it's been accused of being. And so this ordinance kind of handles that on two fronts. One is in the general penalties section, and that's the section of the code that sets out the basic criminal penalties for violating the code. Now, I will say, historically, Solvang has not issued criminal citations for code violations. We tend to just cite things under administrative fines, which is handled by our code enforcement officers. But the code does provide for criminal penalties for violating the code, and this ordinance helps bolster those sections and kind of does some cleanup edits to them and makes one important change that I'll discuss in a minute. But that I just want to make the clear distinction that there is administrative, which is normally what people get as an administrative citation, and then criminal citations. If you get those, you actually go to Superior Court, and so it's a little bit of a different animal, but they can be issued still by our code enforcement officers. They're not, cities who have police departments, they're often issuing the criminal citations, but state law does allow code enforcement officers to issue criminal citations for municipal code violations. And so this ordinance makes in addition to the cleanup edits, makes one important change in the general penalty section, and that is to change the default violation. And so under the code currently, unless the code specifically says something is a misdemeanor if it's violated, the default is that any violation of the code is just an infraction. And those are only punishable by pretty low fines. So $100 for the first violation, $200 for the second, and $500 for the third. This ordinance will flip that so that by default, everything is every violation of the code will be a misdemeanor unless it's specifically noted to be an infraction. However, that just means that we have the option to cite it as a misdemeanor. When you cite something under the code, you have it, if it's whatever it's labeled as is kind of the ceiling. You can always cite a lower level citation or violation, and then me as the city prosecutor has discretion to also lower even if the code enforcement officer said we're charging you with a misdemeanor. When I actually file that in court, I can look at the facts and make a determination. No, this is not a severe enough offense. I'm going to file it as an infraction. And so having the default be the misdemeanor gives the city more flexibility to use that misdemeanor charge if there is an egregious violator or a repeat violator. Whereas now we're kind of tied. We can only cite for infractions, other than some very limited circumstances where it's called out as a misdemeanor. There's a secondary benefit to flipping the default like that, because the government code, on the state law government code, actually ties the caps and ties the administrative fines that you can issue to whether if it's an infraction under the municipal code, then there's a lower ceiling on how high the administrative fines can be, even if you're citing administratively. And so by making the default charge a misdemeanor, that also gives us more flexibility to impose higher administrative fines as well. And that's just a product of state law. They want anything that's an infraction to have kind of corresponding level and size administrative fines, but misdemeanors can have higher fines on the criminal and administrative side. So that's one bucket that this ordinance is doing. And then we're also making some changes in the business certificate section. Again, lots of cleanup edits, kind of clarifying timing of appeals and things like that. But the big edit there is to bolster and make stronger reasons for denying or revoking a business license. So we're proposing to add cross-references to kind of violations under the code that we see a lot, like sign violations or trying to sell or approach people in the public right-of-way to make sales. Those types of violations are things that now, if you do them enough, could be a reason for us to explicitly revoke your business license, which is helpful because sometimes it's harder, violating your business license is factually very easily to establish. And so if we have a repeat offender, maybe we're issuing them administrative citation after administrative citation and they're just not getting the picture because they keep putting out the same, non-compliant sign. At some point, we need to have a bigger stick, basically, and we'll be able to revoke their business license with this change. Another category that we put under there is if a business engages in practices more than 3 or more times a year that the city determines under state law would most likely have constituted unfair business practices, that would also be grounds to revoke a business license. But to be clear, state law is state law. The city is not in charge of enforcing the state unfair business practices requirements, but we're looking at the standards in that law and saying, okay, we think that activity is happening. You've been issued, we think that's happened 3 times in a row. And now that's grounds to revoke your business license, but we're not separately enforcing those state requirements. So happy to answer any questions. Again, this is trying to, bolster our tools to make people follow our code.
Ms. Smith, go ahead.
No, sorry, just in regards to like flipping the code to like a misdemeanor, do we know of any other cities that are kind of in our situation that have done the same thing?
Yes and no, in the sense that almost every other city, I actually don't know of any other city that has it as infraction as the default. It's like almost universally, I'm sure there's some other example, but couldn't find one, where everyone's default misdemeanor. And I think the reason for that is because you can always charge lower, so it doesn't lock you into doing a misdemeanor every single time, and the fact that it affects administrative fines too. And so it just makes a lot of sense to have the default be misdemeanor, because you have the most flexibility. You can, have a higher charge when it's warranted, and have, more effective administrative fines.
Any other questions? Mr.
Yeah.
Alfonte?
You keep mentioning businesses and business licenses. Do these fines, code violations, also refer to contractors and construction?
If they're doing business in the city,
They're building something in the city?
yeah, they have to have a business license too.
Is that a business? I didn't, I
Yeah,
wasn't.
if you're operating a business in the city, you have to have a business license. So yeah, it doesn't mean just brick and mortar.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mr. Murphy?
And that's one of the things, we've also made it a requirement to have a business certificate. And if you don't, that is in itself a violation and can be enforced as a misdemeanor. We have several businesses in town that have a business, that operate a business, that don't have a certificate, or they used to have it, but they've not renewed it. So, like Chelsea pointed out, our code currently largely is a paper tiger, and we all know and have heard examples of businesses in town that repeatedly do something they're not supposed to, or don't do something they are supposed to. And this has been an effort since I've been here working with Chelsea to start talking about and fleshing this out, to put some teeth in the tiger.
Right.
So just how sharp are the teeth? Like, could I spend 6 months in county jail for refusing to take my A-frame out of the public right away?
So misdemeanors generally under the penal code, yes, they are can be a maximum of $1,000 fine and 6 months in county jail, I think. Yeah, not prison, it's county jail. But, for a violation like a sign code, there's no judge is going to give you jail time for that. We wouldn't ask for that. It would be, it would just be a fine. But there's, an added gravitas to making somebody go all the way to Superior Court for a criminal citation than saying, come down to City Hall and pay us $100 for an administrative fine. So there's some of that. We're not going to be getting maximum misdemeanor, penalties for a simple sign code violation, even if we charged it as a misdemeanor. But I think the intent too is not to start charging every single violation under the code as a misdemeanor. It's so that we have that tool available for these repeat offenders that just aren't getting the picture with an administrative fine or multiple administrative fines.
I had did that answer your question?
Yeah, that answers my question.
I wanted to ask the question of, let's say fines have accumulated and are now, say, for argument's sake, it's $5,000 that they've accumulated across the table, and they finally have the idea to comply. Do we have the authority to say if you comply tomorrow, the fine will reduce the fine to $4,000 or something like that? Do we have that flexibility for the city manager, for you as the prosecutor, to immediate gratification on our part? Because yes, I understand the fines to be to, well, for recalcitrant type individuals. And there should be some penalty to it, but if we do the full amount, or what negotiations are there, if any, to the fines that accumulate?
So once they get convicted guilty of a criminal citation, that the city's not in control of that. I mean, that's a judge order in Superior Court. So once they have a criminal citation with a fine, they can't negotiate that with us.
Understood.
If they had an administrative fine, I was just pulling up the administrative citation. I don't think there's like a general provision under the administrative fines to just negotiate away past penalties. But, it is our code, so I'm sure there's like more flexibility there than if it's a criminal
Is that
citation.
something that you would want? Let me ask you that.
I mean, if somebody's $5,000 delinquent on administrative fines, like, I don't know that why we would, if they decide to comply tomorrow, why would we say, okay, you're good?
I only have $4,000. Would you want compliance or continue? I'm just being devil's advocate
yeah,
here,
but
so I
waiving it
apologize
and
for
saying
that.
you don't have to pay is different than maybe helping them on a payment plan or something like that, right?
Okay, yeah.
I mean, that's a
don't know.
policy decision. I'm not,
Yeah,
that is not part of this ordinance because we're not modifying the administrative fines section
okay.
here.
I didn't know if what flexibility existed or if it's even needed.
I would venture that that's certainly within the authority that have been granted by previous board or council conversations and direction. And I have utilized that to help get compliance. Again, as I've stated many times, my goal, our goal as a city enforcement is compliance, not enforcement. So if I can get somebody, and I've done it a few times, and I brought at least one of those instances to you all in closed session, where, okay, we can make this go away, but you need to behave going forward, and those kinds of things. So I would say the answer to your question is yes. May not be exactly codified, but in practice, that is being done now.
If there's no other questions,
I have just a comment. I think we want to look at something a little closer, and I'd like to confirm this is what we really want. There is one clause in the citation section, section 4, where not only do we identify who is empowered to issue a citation with a list of employee titles, but we also say that that list of individuals has the ability to cite and arrest without a warrant the violator. Is that what we want?
I can help. Yeah, so that's
That
a little
feels onerous for a citation. And my reaction is, I don't know if we want our city employees arresting people on the street
so
without a warrant.
I think I need to give you some context about how this fits in with the penal code. That is kind of arcane terminology. And we're mirroring what's in the penal code sections that give code enforcement officers the ability to cite under the municipal code. And so all that happens, it's not an arrest like with handcuffs and we're taking you in. All they're authorized to do is either you issue them a citation and give them a notice to appear. The way that the state law is written, and therefore our code parallels that, is that you give them the citation, and if they don't demand to be taken before a magistrate immediately, you give them a date to appear. That is obviously very, old-fashioned. Like, nobody gets taken before a magistrate immediately because the court dockets are, that's just not how it works. But that's what it says. And so this language in the penal code, I'm not even saying our code. And so, but in practice, it's just you get handed a piece of paper and a date to appear in Superior Court.
That's the citation.
Yes.
Do we
and
have to use that mirrored language then? Arrest without a warrant?
technically, that's what's happening, but they're not. I understand why it's puzzling, but we could take out the word arrest, but we're giving them a citation and we don't have a warrant.
having worked for
Yeah.
a police department in the past, term citing release, essentially, a citation is an arrest.
Yeah.
And like Chelsea said, it is kind of arcane language. You're not physically putting handcuffs on them, but the citation is an arrest. So, but
there-
you're
and
releasing
then
them to appear.
It functions as if it's a warrant.
Right.
Yeah.
And why does it say without a warrant?
Because you haven't had a judge issue a warrant to go get that person.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you. It sounds like invasive,
Well, and
but
then worse, my other reaction is we're letting our planning director and our public works director do that. So, I also think about the consequence of putting our employees in.
yeah. So
I wouldn't, hopefully not, but it's pretty confrontative.
I will say we don't have to reflect it it's not reflected here, but under the penal code, the people who use this authority, there's some training they have to go through for code enforcement purposes. So it's not just any city employee. These are the people that we're designating, and under the penal code, you have to have a city ordinance that designates the people that you want to have this authority. But it ties in with
Okay.
the penal
So
code
if I look at the
process.
paragraph in whole, it does cite the penal code section 836.5.
Right.
And you're repeating that language.
Yeah.
So I can calm down.
Yes.
Okay.
Let me
You're off the
back it
ledge.
up. This is, we're making tweaks to these sections, but the process that's showing in this ordinance is already in our code, and it's reflecting the process that is put forth by the penal codes. This is all very plain vanilla, run-of-the-mill. This is how criminal citations of the municipal code operates under the penal code.
I'll open it up to public comment if there is any. Anybody on Zoom, anybody locally? I see none, so I will then close for public comment and bring it back to the council for further discussion or motion. Any?
Well, I'll just say I'm encouraged. I just am grateful that we're in the position to put a little more strength behind what we ask our people to do. So and in more alignment with what is current in city code. So I'm in support.
And then I'll move that we introduce for first reading for title only the ordinance 26-0388.
Very well. Is there a second?
I will second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve for first reading item 8D. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Infante,
Yes.
Councilmember Claudia Arona,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Elizabeth Arona,
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 8E. And if you would read that into the record, please, Madam Clerk.
Introduced for first reading ordinance 260389 to amend news rack regulations on public property and publicly accessible private property.
Thank you. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. It's me once again. It's the Chelsea show tonight, I guess. Usually I don't have to talk this much. So this is another cleanup ordinance, but this time we are cleaning up and modernizing our news rack ordinance. Staff did a lot of work under the old ordinance to go through and clear out and notify everyone who didn't have a valid permit and make sure that all those news racks that weren't permitted are off the city properties, out of the right of way. So there's only permitted news racks remaining, and then consistent with direction from council, we've reworked the news rack ordinance. We've shortened the duration of the permit, made the sections clearer, so the process for removing unpermitted news racks is clearer and modernized, and made some other cleanup edits. I mean, for example, the old ordinance, or the current ordinance, I should say, inconsistently refers to the planning manager and the the Public Works Director as administering the news rack program. So this ordinance cleans that up. It's clearly in the Public Works Department. Changes like that, but this is kind of coming back after direction from council to shorten the permit time frame and clean all of that up. So happy to answer questions, or if Mr. Murphy wants to add.
I just wanted to add a little bit. Thanks. We've been working at this pretty much since I started. Received a number of complaints. The news racks that we had were old and derelict. They were covered in graffiti and/or stickers. They were attractive nuisance, and that people were leaving their garbage in them and on them. The local businesses complained, but our ordinance didn't allow us really to do much. This is an opportunity to clean that up, to get the news racks compliant, and if not, it gives us the tools necessary to remove them.
Thank you. Any questions or issues? I will say that the ones we got rid of, it looks a lot nicer. It's more attractive in those areas. So I think we're making great progress.
And if I could add one more thing to the problem with putting trash on top of them, this ordinance specifies a model of news rack that people have to use, and I believe Bridget picked one that is more of an A-frame
Cone-shaped,
rooftop, so
Sloped
that it
top.
won't have a flat spot for people to just
Put their drink and
absentmindedly
forget
put
it,
their
yeah.
coffee cup on. Yes, so hopefully
Gravity.
that will solve that problem without having
No
to
cup holders.
maintenance issue. Yeah.
Okay.
So on that point then, Chelsea, are we giving people, maybe I missed that, time window to comply within?
Yes, I think it's all the way at the bottom, last section, after they have,
Time for compliance, yeah.
yeah, they have 90 days from the effective date of the ordinance. So assuming you introduce tonight and adopt at the next reading or next meeting, which would be February 9th, so it wouldn't be effective until March 9th, and they got 90 days after that. So there's pretty good lead time. But I will say, I think there's only 2 news rack permits out
Yeah,
there
they've
right
cleaned
now.
up most of them.
So it's not like there's a whole bunch of people that are going to be
Surprise.
struggling to comply. Yeah, it's a good point to do this because we're sort of starting fresh without that many existing news racks.
Very well. I will open it to public comment, if there is any, on this item, or news racks. Okay, not much news there. I will then close it for public comment and bring it back to the dais for either further discussion or a motion.
Well, I'll make a motion to introduce the first reading of ordinance 260389, amending in its entirety Chapter 5 of the news racks of Title 8 of the Solvang Municipal Code.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded
Twice.
to, and third, to approve item 8E as a first reading. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Infante.
Yes.
Councilmember Claudia Aruna.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Elizabeth Aruna.
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes,
Motion passes 5-0.
thank you. We're at the end of our agenda items. Are there any council closing comments for the end of January? Any Super Bowl bets or anything that we need to know about?
I am now the world's biggest Patriots fan.
Okay.
I'm rooting for Bad Bunny.
Like they need your help, right? Well, very well. I want to thank everybody for this evening, and we are adjourned at 7:58. Thank you.